Violation of the law for Dennis actually voting twice, and I don't believe Dennis actually voted 7 times. I think someone used his name, which makes it identity theft, which is a different crime, but it's still a crime. So duplicate names makes this uh, makes this invalid. The non-zeros after the decimal point makes these IDs, state IDs, invalid. So then Weston Martinez sent this file to Lori, and she noticed that the spacing between the 6 fake Dennises was constant. So if you take the first fake Dennis on this second line, that we know it's fake because of the 57755, and you add 16 million something 0.09226, you get the ID, the fake ID for the second fake Dennis, the third line. And if you add 16 million something 0.09226 to that, you get the next one. So all of these Dennis clone fake IDs are equally spaced by this strange number. Then if you come down to Raul, the first Raul clone that is obviously fake has 0.8826 6 to 0.260, and if you add 16 million something 0.09226 to that, you get the next fake Raul, and so on. So all of the fake Dennises are equally spaced. All of the Rauls are equally spaced with the same spacing, and that is true for every item that is in this check-in list. So then Lori sent the file to me, and I did a little more analysis on it, and I discovered that that number 16 million something 0.09226, that the spacing between the clones in each batch of clones was exactly 735 times 22084.82190, and there's 735 unique names in the file. So then I sent the file to Dr. Andrew Paquette, who's also done a lot of voter roll analysis, including in Texas, but he started out in New York, and he found even more mathematical patterns. And so if you'd like to see some really deep math, go to zarkfiles, zarkfiles.substack.com, select all posts for 2026 and start on February 25th. That was the first post he made on Bear. He's made five or six. So now someone with eagle eyes out there already noticed a problem in column D. So in column D, the first Dennis lives at 1162 West Winnipeg. But where does the first fake live? At 1163 and 1164 and 1165 and 1166, 1167, 1168. How about Raul? The first Raul lives at 300 Labor Street, and the fake Rauls live at 301, 302, 303, 304, 305. So I looked at Google Maps for this particular address, and there really is an 1162, which is this white roofed house right here. So there really is an 1162. In this part of San Antonio, the house numbers go up by 4 with even and odd on opposite sides of the street. So if this is 1162, 1163 is across the street, but across the street is the back alley of O'Reilly's. So 1163 is right about there. And there is no 1164 because it jumps by 4, or it's 1165 is in the side parking lot of O'Reilly's across the street. 1166 as a lot number would be this parking lot right here. So we've got some real addresses, some fake addresses in that, but they are incremented by 1, and that appeared on all of the entries that we looked at, except for 6. There were also invalid and incremented precinct numbers, but that's a deeper dive. So what have we got here? We've got check-ins, which generates a ballot for duplicate names with fake IDs at incremented and or fake addresses. So that means this is totally manufactured. So now what happened when the precinct chairs reported this and said, hey, you got duplicate names on this list? Well, the election administrator first said, oh, it was an export data glitch. And then she asked the public relations office in Bexar County, what should I say? People are asking me about this. And the public relations officer told her what to say, and that's in a public records request email. Said, tell everybody that we looked into it and there's no problems, that our elections in Bexar County are safe, secure, and accurate. So, as they say on TV, stay tuned for further developments. That's the news from Bexar County, Texas. Our best guess at the moment is that they used the real check-in list, because there really was a Dennis who checked in. There really was a Raul who checked in on the February 18th. However, if you look at the names, because they were repeated 5 or 6 times, giving 6 or 7 entries of the same name, they only used the first 735 names in alphabetical order. So if 4,500 people voted across the county roughly on February 18th, their last names would go from A to Z. However, if you look at the names on this list, it's A's, B's, and half of the C's. And there are no last names starting D through Z. So it appears that they started with the real check-in list and sorted them by last name, only took the first 735 of them, cloned them, assigned them fake IDs, and then checked them in. We don't know. So all we know, this data is from the Knowing database for the poll pads that indicates that a check-in was made. So the intended standard process is that when a voter checks in, since this is an ES&S county, that it prints a header on a ballot card with text and barcode that says the name of the election and the ballot style, and then the voter takes that card over to a touchscreen machine, makes their selections, and then those are appended in text and barcode, and then they take the finished ballot over to a scanner and insert it to be scanned. So once the check-in is accepted, then a ballot is authorized to be printed. Whether they were actually printed, whether we would have to get the logs from every uh, Knowing poll pad in the county and from every printer to see how many ballots each printer printed, and see if one set of printers printed 4,541 extra ballots on the 18th. It's also possible that this was just banking it. So in New York, a couple of years ago, what Dr. Paquette found is that they were actually registering fake voters on the state voter roll by permuting the middle initial. So my middle name is Chisholm, so I'm Walter C. Daugherty. So they would register a Walter A. Daugherty, Walter B. Daugherty, Walter D. Daugherty, on down to Walter Z. Daugherty, and have 25 registered voters who were fake. And then if they needed extra ballots to tip the election, then they would have those fake names vote. And then after the election, they'd say, oh, they moved out of the county, and delete them from the state voter roll. What we've seen here in Bexar County doesn't even require going to the state voter roll. All it does is check them in, which, as I say, authorizes a ballot. So we need further investigation to know if if the authorized ballots for these fake IDs were actually printed, were actually voted. And since the total number of ballots is not 4,500 too high, if ballots were actually printed, then they would have to have been substituted. We'd have to remove the real ballots from February 18th and replace them with ballots that were voted with these fake IDs. To me says that it was done by a human, a very smart human, but not a human who didn't make mistakes. So the name field here is not separated out. This column B, second column, is not separated out by first name, middle name, last name, suffix. And so there were voters in here like John Smith Jr., that this algorithm just picked up the JR and sorted it with the J's as though JR was the last name. That's a human type of mistake. And so it's kind of like when you see a video and you say, I wonder if this video is AI. And then you notice that all the people have six fingers on both hands. So seeing little things like that, I'm inclined to think that this was done by a very smart mathematician who managed to take what amounts to 735 combs or rakes that are equally spaced and then stack them all up on top of each other so that none of the 735 sets of six or seven teeth hit each other. So all of these fake IDs with non-zero after it are not only equally spaced, but they're designed not to have two fake voters have the same fake ID number.